Hey, it's like I just saw you all like 10 hours ago. It's good to see you again. Happy Saturday again, Saturday night now. Night is the time for Catwoman. Tonight is an omnibus discussion, the second in a hopefully ongoing series of omnibus discussions with my friend JP Budget Collecting.
Hey, what's going on, man?
I got
everybody like 30 minutes later. I know you have a shirt and I still don't.
I got the gear, and you too, chat, can get it as well. The link is down below to get JP official merchandise with the new logo and everything.
Again, you have a shirt. I still don't have one.
It gets better. I have 3. Because one of them was they sent me the wrong size and they don't want it back. They just sent me another one. So
nice. There you go.
It worked out. It's an awesome midriff shirt on me.
Nice midriff.
So I'm not wearing that one tonight.
You workout. It's for your workouts.
Yeah.
When you go to the beach.
Get in the garage gym and everything.
Yeah.
So yes, folks, this is the second one of these that JP and I have done. We did the Volume 1 Ms. Marvel run by Chris Claremont, the Carol Danvers comic. And that was sort of the launch of the idea that JP and I have a lot of the same books that are waiting to be read on our shelves. And how do we read them and create some content around this?
Force ourselves to actually do it.
yeah. Set some deadlines for ourselves and stay on top of these things
a little bit. Late on this one, so it's good.
Yeah. Which for me is good at this time of year. That's good.
So
I'm going to say hello to some friends in the chat, and then we'll talk a little bit about what this omnibus entails for people. Las Cruces was in here about 4 hours ago, being the man, and then he was here 30 minutes ago as well. I appreciate you, sir. And we got Ruben Guzman, Calm Cool Collected White Tiger in the chat. What is going on, sir? And we got Cliff. He's saying, oh my, he's probably excited that we're reading some DC comic books tonight. Good to see you, Cliff. We got JP in the chat as well. So there he is. You can just click on his name and go right to his channel that way. That works as well. And we got Rob Boswell. All of those folks are channel members for the YouTube channel. Very much appreciated. All those channel members. There's a little join button that you should be able to hit ideally. My phone sometimes doesn't always show it. I've got to catch somebody live usually. But feel free to join and follow us. Rob was the only book club level coalition member, so he got to choose a book for me to review this month. And I'm reading my way through Ghost Spider, the current run of Ghost Spider. So prepare for a review on that coming soon. So thank you for the suggestion, Rob. We got Coach Vic. What is going on, Coach Vic? I know I usually do Saturday night movie stuff, but Vic, you can join us to talk Catwoman if you're okay with some Gotham City fun tonight. And we got the Robert Galvin himself, the comic book G-Man. He had a great live stream with he was packed. He had all 10 spaces filled on his show today. Really, really entertaining. Lots of great community members, people showing off some great books and having some good times. So appreciate you coming by, Robert. Happy Catter Day. That's clever. I should have used something along those lines. Yeah. I didn't capitalize on that. My bad.
You did not. That's right.
Brian LCS, another one of my channel members, dropping his emojis in the chat. The Storm, the Lego, the Cyclops. Appreciate you, sir. Why is he reporting over there?
Over here. Well, I already reported. We reported early, and then now we're doing Catwoman.
Now we're back to now we're talking comic books, I guess. So tonight the discussion is around. I got the dust jacket over here. I realize the one with the actual title on it, Catwoman of East End.
The dust jacket's over there on the bookshelf.
I'm the same way. I had the book here, the dust jacket.
Yeah, when I'm reading it, I take the dust jacket off.
Catwoman of East End, primarily written by Ed Brubaker, but there are other writers like Darwyn Cooke involved as well. And a lengthy list, so much so that they can't even really include any but Darwyn Cooke's name on the front here. So many artists worked on this volume. What does it collect? We've got some issues of Detective Comics, about 3 or 4 of those. The Catwoman Secret Files and Origins, #1, and then 1 through 37 of the Catwoman series proper. From 2000.
And the
I don't know what year, 2002,
which was the Darwyn
and Selena's Big Score,
which is like a little standalone mini series. So
So you have a handful of other tie-in issues, but obviously the bulk of the volume is these 37 issues of Catwoman, and primarily Ed Brubaker is driving the ship here. Darwyn Cooke is heavy on the front end, but then kind of like shifts out of it. Now, I will say, when I picked this up, and I joked with you, my thought of what this was
Darwyn Cooke
different than what it actually was. I thought this was a story of Catwoman in hiding in London. I thought East End meant London. Like I didn't know that had an East End.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this. Yes.
Legitimately thought that this was going to be Catwoman in a totally different country, being Catwoman without the same usual villains that we deal with. So I went in expecting something very different than what I got, which was more of the typical Brubaker noir kind of stuff in the end.
Yeah.
You were the one that set me straight on, like, I don't know what got into your brain, John, but there's no London here. This is all in Gotham or in and around Gotham in some way.
Yeah, we leave Gotham at times, but
there's some road trips, yeah, for sure.
Gotham. Yes,
yeah. But can you help me chronologically place where this volume goes? Because this is really the first Catwoman like long form that I've ever read.
Okay, so technically this is considered volume 3 of Catwoman. So there was volume 1 was a miniseries. It was the 4-issue miniseries in the mid 80s, late 80s that led up to that was kind of her first standalone book. So she had obviously been in the, she existed going back to the golden age.
Okay.
Late 80s, she finally got a miniseries. Then volume 2 is that, which is that first ongoing
stuff, right?
There was the 90s.
Yeah.
90s, Jim Ballant.
Ballant, not Boland.
Yeah,
Ballant
is the artist on that. That's like the most famous creator on that because there's rotating things. So that was 90s purple suit, all of that. Yeah. Eventually, toward the end, she went to like a black costume there as well. But at the end of that series, basically when that series ended in like 2000-ish, the world thought Selena Kyle was dead. Like she had basically faked Selena Kyle's death at the end of that book.
Okay.
So which leads into, there was no book for a while, and then it leads into the Selena's Big Score storyline where she's taking advantage of being sort of dead, and Catwoman has disappeared as well. And then, which leads into this volume 3, technically, which was like 2002, I believe, is when it started.
Yeah, I thought it was early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah, and basically this is the first time, like, she had always been like, I'll help Batman here, or, the thief with the heart of gold kind of thing. But this is the first time where she was fully, like, to my recollection, and I've read almost that whole 90s series, is that she was full-time, like, kind of the anti-hero, like, just trying to, like, not, like, more thief than, helping people, but actually just trying to help people,
Yeah, so, like,
in her way.
I heard somebody describe it as going from an anti-villain to an anti-hero.
Yeah.
Right? The villain who occasionally can do the right thing versus the hero who occasionally steps over the line to accomplish their ends. Right? Yeah. Which is, on either side of the gray area of these characters is where Catwoman's always existed anyways, right?
She's always been the gray in the middle of, not truly, not rich. I mean, she steals from rich people or whatever, but she's not really, is she hurting anybody? Generally, no.
No. She's always been kind of that Robin Hood, like on the side of the downtrodden, the misfortunate souls, right?
She's just never get a little coin for her own pocket while she was doing it,
Yeah, she definitely she targets the wealthy who are manipulating the system and taking advantage of people. Yeah. So well, Christina Payne is in the chat. What's going on, Christina? Good to see you, my friend.
Okay, this shirt with the lines is doing weird things to my camera. It's just like straight lines, but it's like, it's doing weird things.
So what you get if you pick up this volume is a Catwoman in transition, and I feel like that's the long form story that they're doing here. Is a character in Selena who is trying to find who she wants to become, right? Trying to find this new path for herself. And Christina, sorry, thank you, Christina, for dropping JP's link. Catwoman is basically navigating the former life that she used to live, and maybe the life Bruce would imagine her being, like one of his cronies, right? And trying to find her own path inside of those expectations, right?
Yeah.
So you talked about the first. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, even early in the book, like we have where when she first shows back up in a Catwoman costume, although it's the new look that we see here, and Bruce finds her, and he's like, "So," and she's like, "Well, I'm figuring it out."
Yeah,
because she doesn't because he's trying to figure out where she's going to be, what her path, where she's going, and she's basically like, "I'll tell you when I know,"
right?
And that's kind of where she's at when we find her.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's something of a mess as a result. Like, she's making a lot of bad choices, and is kind of having to figure things out without any real plan in mind. In a lot of the choices that she makes and the partnerships that she forms are really odd and don't necessarily feel like typical choices she would normally make. But I think it's due to the circumstances she finds herself in. On the art side, I went into this thinking, oh, Brubaker and Darwyn Cooke, this is going to be just banger. I'm going to, I love Brubaker's writing. Darwyn Cooke is a phenomenal artist, or I should say was a phenomenal artist. I'm like, this is going to be incredible. And then I was very let down to find out how little of this volume Darwyn Cooke drew. Because it amounts to probably fewer than 10 issues, or around 10.
Basically, he wrote and drew the Selena's Big Score, which was the 4-issue miniseries that was outside of the main volume.
Right.
He drew that Brubaker wrote 4 backup stories in Detective that we get are about Slam Bradley.
Yeah.
And then he drew the first 4 issues of the series, and that was it.
So there you go. Something in the neighborhood of 10 issues.
Yeah.
And as good as that artwork is in that sequence, and it is phenomenal, my biggest criticism is I never felt like the book lived up to that expectation, which was really high on my part, and maybe unfairly high without knowing.
And I would say that the 4 issues that he draws of the main series are all set up for what Brubaker's gonna do. It's all about introducing who Catwoman's side characters are going to be, where the stories is finding her in terms of that whole scene with Bruce occurs in this where he's like, so what what's your path? And she's like, I don't know, and so it's all just set up of the world that Brubaker's going to operate in, and then he's gone for when we get to the main events that are the main events of this volume.
Yeah.
So then I call them when I see the thing, it was Darwyn Cooke issues 1 through 4, Imitators issues 5 through 24, and that's unfair to the artists that do those other issues. But there is definitely, they did clearly pick artists that had a similar style or aesthetic to Cooke to try to continue what he was doing in terms of the style of the book. And sometimes it worked better than others in terms of them doing that, at least in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I think I agree 100%.
So, so when we get to some of the main, important big scenes in this volume, it's well, there's no Darwyn Cooke with it. So.
Yeah. And I think, and again, I think that is a little bit on me with my expectations, but it's also hard when Darwyn Cooke's doing all the beginning of this volume, and the transition is pretty dramatic, right. And then you're always trying to you can never go home, but you want to go home.
You want to go home, yeah.
Well, then let's talk a little story, because that's the art and that's the overview of the omnibus.
I will say before we move off the art is, as much as the Imitators, which were are all fantastic artists, don't get me wrong, they're just not Darwyn Cooke. Through issues 24, when we got to issue 25 and they decided to abandon the aesthetic and give us Paul Glumacy and Jimmy Palmiotti for the rest of the volume, it was it went from we thought it was a major step down from Darwyn. We were incorrect. What a major step down was. And that's not even, I don't like those artists.
Yeah.
It's just a jarring change, and like it just was like, oh, we're going this way now. I don't know. It just is not. They're not my favorite for sure.
No, and I don't think this is even their best work. This is definitely like Palmiotti. I've seen obviously do a lot of things.
Like it's
he's just inking. Okay,
like the Gloomacy guy is doing the thing.
Okay,
Palmiotti is inking it. Is the way it reads. Because I wanted to check today. I was like, man, because even for like Palmiotti, I like his art better than this. And
yeah. Because I mean, he's done what Harley Quinn. He's done with Amanda Connors. He's done a bunch of stuff.
But Amanda does the lines, and he inks over Amanda.
Okay, I didn't know that either. I've not studied Palmiotti. I've just sort of gotten his stuff like in passing.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because the Paul Gulacy stuff is not strong. Not strong.
It's not.
All right. So there's an overview for people that want to maybe understand the Omnibus as art style. But let's get into story, and let's talk a little bit about the first story arc, the mini series you talked about, the big score where we see Catwoman not really in her costume, but she's operating under this civilian almost persona, where she's part of almost a Mission Impossible style robbery of this. It's like a train, right at the beginning.
Yeah, they're robbing a train.
Yeah, and she's partnered up with some people that she's not super familiar with. That she's it's interesting how she gets roped into this.
Well, it's like we see her early on, like it's her, but like she finds out about this, and she recruits a guy from her past that I don't know anything about in the comics outside of the story, which is the Stark guy that supposedly was one of the people that like trained her to be a thief early on, that ultimately she burned at some point. And so they have a little bit of a love-hate relationship going on. And then she recruits some other people along the way to like help with this, like you said, kind of a Mission Impossible Italian job, kind of like, okay, we got boats and we got plane engines on train cars.
And they're flying all around the world.
And we got we're parachuting money into a bay, and we're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So it was like, I'll be curious to what you thought of it. And this was all written and drawn by Darwyn Cooke. So he was the driver behind this completely. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm curious what you thought of this thing.
It was definitely fun and not what I expected it to be. At this point in the volume, I was like, "This is wild," but I'm in for it. It's and the characters that we're getting. Slam Bradley comes in, right? He's comes in
toward the end. He comes in toward the end. Yeah.
The art style obviously very strong. Darwyn Cooke does a great job, and it all basically seems to be setting up. Like you said, like where Catwoman is now after her demise, Selena's demise,
right?
And some backstory stuff for Selena, and kind of getting a sense of like, a deeper sense maybe of her as a character beyond just Batman's flame or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like, I was entertained by it, and I did enjoy it, but it's very short. It's not terribly long.
No. I mean, it's a quick and easy read. Like, if you're a fan of the character in any way, shape, or form, I would highly recommend it as a quick, easy. I mean, in some ways, it feels almost like a Elseworld story, even though it's not. Like, because it could be, because she's not really in the Catwoman costume the whole time.
No.
She's clear, but it's really just this fun story of like this job they're trying to pull and why she's pulling it, which is like, she's being a thief, but it's also like the people, it's that whole Robin Hood thing. These are awful people that she's stealing from. She's trying to like, and ultimately they're like, the reasons for doing it are good to a certain degree. Like these are, mobsters that she's stealing from. And I think Stark is a really good character in this book.
James, is it?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to understand like how she became where she got these skills. I think we've often learned about Batman and all the people that have trained him to do various things in his background, but I don't think we've ever gotten that kind of thing for Catwoman until now.
Right. Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting to kind of see some of that.
Yeah.
Oh, two more friends in the chat. We got Matt, the boy who had 7. What is going on, Matt? Good to see you, sir. And Rod the Rican, also Hot Rod from the Hot Rod Garage, all his awesome Hot Wheels videos. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming by. And give me a second, Robert, before we get to this question, because it's a phenomenal question. We definitely want to answer for you tonight. But this mini-series is also really heavy. You get some really heavy moments, especially at the end, when we see Catwoman having to deal with the repercussions of, when you have a team. It's easy when it's just you, right? It's easy when it's just you and you're risking your own self, and she's very casual about her own life, right? But not when you have people you care about going along with you, because now you're like Batman, you're responsible for them. And I think that weight is kind of like the last straw that makes her realize that old life is not working anymore. It pushes her out of the villain mode completely. Right. So in a sense, for this volume, it's pivotal.
It really, like I said, it really sets up that transition we talked about before of the anti-villain to the anti-hero kind of thing. It's because she does good things in the 90s volume. Like, she does altruistic things throughout that 90s volume, but fundamentally she's still a thief.
Right. She's still breaking the law consistently for her own benefit.
And then when you get to this volume, she doesn't really steal at all. Like, other than a couple of minor things that she accumulates some money from bad people anyway, but she's not going out to steal.
No. And she's trying to stop. Yeah, she's trying to stop villainy in variety of forms, right? Whether it's police corruption or whether it's organized crime or whatever.
She basically grew up in the East End, and she's trying to protect her old neighborhood.
Yeah, in that way, it's something of a Daredevil kind of story of deciding that Hell's Kitchen needs its protector. In this case, this corner of Gotham is maybe not being as cared for by the Batman as she feels like it could be.
Right.
So now I need to up my game and not just be focused on enriching myself, but perhaps protecting others. Right. Are you getting tired of the jacket? You're like,
it's driving me crazy. To me, I don't know if it's driving anybody else watching it, but
I can't even see it. I don't even notice it. So,
well, I'm gonna dip it for a second. So.
JP, so funny. So that's the mini series that the lead into this. Then, like JP said, we get a series called The Trail of the Catwoman, and this is really involving Slam Bradley, and we're getting to see somebody who is following Catwoman to try to better understand, is she dead? Who is this person in and around the East End? And obviously, Slam becomes a big part of this story going forward. This is my first time ever encountering the character. Do you have any experience with him?
I had heard of him related to Catwoman, referencing this run. Okay. But I hadn't really read any Slam Bradley until I got this. This was my first real exposure to him. I had heard of the character, but I didn't know anything about the character. But yeah, we get basically
he's this classic gumshoe detective character, very Ed Brubaker-esque. This is in keeping with Brubaker's style, and he's also someone who very quickly has love interest for Catwoman. Very quickly is oh wow, now I see it. Now I understand
how falls for Selena hard,
really hard. And I don't know if this is his first appearance or not. Do you know if this is?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't think it is. But he instantly throws his morality aside and follows her lead.
That much to throw aside.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. But he was a former police officer, right? He's become a gumshoe, and now he's well, I agree more with what she's doing in the world than any of these. Forget Batman and the cops and whatever I was doing for a career. she's on a path I want to follow in a lot of ways, not just because he's following her tight costume.
Yeah. But that doesn't hurt.
No. Does that make her a villain? I mean, certainly, I think that's that line, right? If the line in the middle is good and evil, she was a character that was an anti-villain, meaning like she was near to the line because she would do altruistic things from time to time or help Batman if it did something good for her. Right. But now she's stepping over to the other side of the line where she's breaking the law, but doing it to do good things, right? To help other people in a Robin Hood Batman kind of way. Right. Yeah. So in that way, it's that interesting transition away from selfishness to selflessness that I think is kind of the focus here, where other characters, and we'll meet Holly here in a little bit, but there's other characters who seem to be driving her motivation to do better. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Richard is in the chat. What's going on, Richard? Good to see you, sir. How you been doing, my friend? I think she's talking to Matt, right? She's talking to Matt, checking in with Matt. So the Slam Bradley story part I thought was just an interesting setup. It felt like you said those were the backup stories in Detective.
They were backup stories in Detective.
Okay.
And so they very much were setting up. So they kind of follow. Because we see Slam a couple times in the Catwoman's big score, but it's kind of following the fact that he got hired to find Selena Kyle, even though she was supposed to be dead. And that's how he gets on the track. And it kind of tells that story separate from the big score, all the setup, both of which set up the Brubaker run that comes.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So now with the miniseries done and with the backup stories done, we're finally into Catwoman, the ongoing series, right?
Gore Vidal. Yes, he is very much drawn like Robert Mitchum toward the end.
I mean, this is true. I think the way that they capture Slam is like hard-boiled noir detective through and through. Yeah. And Robert Mitchum, fair for sure. Yes. Bobby is in the chat. What's going on, Bobby? Good to see you, sir. Appreciate you, man, for coming by. Okay, so now we're in the ongoing story, right? We're in the bigger story, and we're sort of seeing Selena in a new light, where she's basically in and around her region of Gotham, this East End region, and trying to navigate it not from the perspective of how to enrich myself, but how to improve the status. And in a lot of ways, she does that daredevil thing of like sort of letting crime and criminal families know, like, this is my area. Like, you don't get to operate inside of here without running it through me, or, making sure that you're not harming this community.
Yeah.
Which seems to be a bold stand for her to take as a character, because she's supposed to be gone and dead, right? She's not supposed to be around. What were your thoughts on where this goes and in the launch of that ongoing series?
Yeah, so we get the launch, and like I said, the first couple of issues is where we get her back in the suit, and we get that conversation we talked about between her and Bruce, where he's like, "So what can I expect from you?" And she's like, "I don't know, we'll see." And we immediately get this first arc is like that their women are being found dead in the neighborhood, and it's like, and it kind of sets up where she goes, where you're talking about is like, she starts investigating. Like, nobody else is paying attention to these women. Some of them, they're hookers or just, young women. The cops aren't really paying attention. Nobody cares about these ladies of the night, so to speak. With Selena, this is still the origin where she once was.
Right. Like the Miller year one.
Yeah.
Origin, right?
Where she was, and I think that's still the case now. It's come and gone, just how much of that is truly part of her history or not.
Right.
But so she starts investigating this.
Which I like that it's not her style of investigation is not like Bruce's. There's no technology, there's no fingerprinting. She's not like, there's no CSI side to this. It's all questioning, interrogating, and earning the trust of the local citizens, right?
Yes.
So in that way, she is very different in her methodologies from Batman.
Yeah, she's not a traditional detective, like in terms of like how she's going about this. And basically how she goes about it is she sets herself up. to be, puts on a blonde wig and goes to the neighborhood where the area where all this has happened, and she sets herself up to be picked up by this guy. And
she's using herself as bait for sure.
Yes.
I hope that you find some interest in it, Matt, and that it's something that piques. It was my first time reading a Catwoman's omnibus like this, so I was definitely not ready for what it was, but happy with what I got for sure.
Yeah.
We got some other homies in the chat. We got Circumstances in the chat. What is going on, Marcus? Good to see you, sir. He's been dropping some great clips from his Tuesday night show lately. I appreciate it. We got one of my channel members in Wrenches. We got Perry, Comic Lore, his new channel in the chat. What's going on? It's not going to, John Saggett's not a thing. Get out of here.
John Saget.
Boy Wet 7 is here tonight. He's relaxing after a busy Thanksgiving. I'm sure with all the 7 of the kids at home, it's probably a busy weekend for him. But a lot of fun, I imagine, too. Okay, so I like that the story involved her helping women in need, because it felt very connected to her origin in that way, where she felt like, I could have been one of these ladies. I need to make sure that they're taken care of.
And
right.
Basically, what you were talking about is, and through this, where she finds out that it was a confused Clayface and everything else, and ultimately gets, takes him down. But it's really about, like, through this initial story arc is how she decides, you know what, this is my neighborhood. I'm going to look after these people.
Right.
And like sets up the whole rest of the run, which is, so we get that initial story arc, and then it's, it sets up the rest of the run where she starts dealing with dirty cops, and she's dealing with the mob and what they're doing in the neighborhood. And it really sets up everything that she's like, no, this is my neighborhood. You're going to play by my rules.
Because she's starting to define herself as a hero and what that would look like, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I got a new channel member, Robert G. Thank you so much. Let me play a little bit for you. Appreciate you, sir. Big time. Let's see. What would Robert like? Let's do a little hula for you, sir. And then I know Perry probably wants to see the slap, so let's do the slap.
No, well, now they know. Let it go, let it go. Can't hold that game on. The cold never bothered me anyway.
Whack.
Always entertaining. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate you, sir. Much appreciated, man. Aggressively relaxing. How's it going, my guy? Richard says, this is the Catwoman I like. I don't like the selfish cat burglar arc. And really, that's the kind of function of this omnibus, is taking her from what she had been to this point and defining her in a way that made her, I don't want to say part of the Bat family, but certainly on the hero side squarely. Like there's no arguing about her being a villain, despite the fact that she's still haunted by this, right? People still judge her in ways of like, oh, you're not the hero anymore. You can't pretend to be a hero. I know what you've done, kind of stuff.
Yes.
But I do like the way that they're recontextualizing her in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Perry's new channel. He's going back to doing a lot of great comic book related content. He's also partnered with TK's Bat Cave. So they've been doing a lot of shorts, a lot of videos. It's definitely worth the subscription if you don't. And feel free to, both you guys have the ability to drop his link if you want to drop it, or drop your own. Feel free. Go crazy. And he's already dropping JP's favorite emoji, the Cyclops.
That emoji will never be used by me.
You're like 50% of the reason why I made sure I had that.
I know you. I know I
am. Okay, so this first arc with the girls, the mysterious deaths in and around East End, definitely gives her this new storyline, this new look. Do we want to get into Holly here a little bit and kind of?
I was going to say Holly and just the rest of the cast that we kind of pick up as we go into this.
Yeah, I mean Holly is almost like her Robin in a lot of ways. Holly is it's this young girl who needs a mother figure in her life, needs some guidance, and after the danger that Holly's been in, Selena sort of takes her in and starts training her. Not only that, but like later on, we'll actually send her with the people that trained her in some ways and attempt to give her the same skill set that Selena has used so well, but with a new mindset behind it. Not a, hey, go and steal what you need, but a, how can we now work together to help East End, right?
Yeah. So we see Holly in this, and Holly's a character that had been around before. Like occasionally, I think she even appears maybe in year one. Like, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think maybe. But she's basically goes back to when Selena was a hooker, and basically Holly was the teenager that basically got into that life that Selena kind of adopted and protected. At some point, Holly also got on drugs. And this is like Selena, looking out for this kid. That's, so Holly's cleaned herself up, trying to get out of that life, and Selena's trying to help her. And
if that's the same Holly, if that's the same character, I don't remember the name of the blonde young gal in
sure
year one. That would be fantastic.
I think it's meant to be, whether they named her in year one or not. I think it's meant to be her.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense to me as well, as far as like their connection and relationship and the longevity of that. That makes a lot more sense.
So yeah, very much in Selena's mind, her little sister in a lot of ways.
Yes. Which we'll get to sisters in a little bit here. Obviously, Dr. Leslie Tompkins, who Bat fans will know from her work in and around the charities that Bruce extends with his money, and with her medical abilities, often helping Bruce with his injuries. Leslie plays a big part in this series too, as she sort of offers a lot of the same benefits to Catwoman that she's been offering to Batman for so many years.
And she also, she offers, in this book at least, to me, she's sort of Selena's Alfred to a little bit of, like, she's someone Selena talks to that she kind of trusts.
Yeah.
To get opinion on stuff and to try to be her, not that Alfred's ever successful with Bruce, but to try to be her grounding a little bit about, think about what you're doing and where you're going with this. And it doesn't always work, but like, she is kind of her confidant, I guess, in a lot of ways. And Selena really goes to her because she doesn't, it's pretty obvious that she doesn't want to go to Bruce unless she just has to.
Yeah. I think they both, Leslie and Selena, want her to stand on her own feet and redefine herself in this way successfully. But at the same time, I think Leslie's been burned by Bruce's choices in the past. And so she's trying to avoid some of the same pitfalls for Selena, which is interesting, Bobby's saying, no, she wasn't a hooker. She was an exotic entertainer. I think
entertainer. Okay.
That's fair. I appreciate Richard dropping JP's link, and also the link to his merchandise is down below if you want to get yourself some cool shirts. I'm just saying, he doesn't even have one.
I don't.
Bobby likes the Darwyn Cooke Catwoman. Obviously, we are all, I think, fans of that for sure.
I will say we didn't really talk about it, but to me, the black suit with the goggles and the zipper, I think is probably my favorite one.
And ultimately, doesn't this become sort of based on what Jim Lee does during the Hush era? It becomes like the defining look for her. I think once Jim Lee got in there, I think it was like, whoa.
They've tweaked it a little bit in recent years, but for the most part, it stayed pretty close to a version of this.
Got it. Yeah, because it is so striking. Like, it's just a really strong look. The goggles, whether they're up on her head or on her eyes, I think it's a really great look. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate you, sir. Much appreciated, man. So then we also have her sister, and this was news to me, and I don't know if Selena's had a sister before this. Do you have any knowledge of that?
So the sister, in the aftermath of what happened here, showed up in the current Catwoman run early on, like some of the Joel Jones, toward the end of the Joel Jones stuff, I think, in the current one. So, but I didn't know anything about it before I read those books. So her showing up here was like, oh, okay, I'm going to get some backstory, because she's, for fully functional when we first meet her, and we get into why she's not when we meet her in the current universe where she's had some mental issues and where that comes from. So no, I knew that the sister existed but I don't know if she existed before this or where she came into play. I don't. So.
Okay. It's funny because I just read the beginning of the Batwoman omnibus with the shocking sister reveal in that one. And I was like, okay, wait, do all these ladies have hidden sisters that I was not aware of? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
We got to keep up with all this. That's the whole crew, right? Is there any side characters we want to mention beyond that? Any heroes?
I mean, everybody else comes and goes way more. Like the only one, it's beyond that. Like the next biggest, probably consistent side character is Bruce, and he just shows up here and there.
Oh yeah, he's hardly in this volume. Don't go into it expecting more Bruce because he's really not a significant portion of this. No. He looms over it kind of like in the Gotham Central omnibus in that series, but it's not he's not a consistent figure in any way.
No.
With the expansion of the Bat family, I'm surprised DC didn't create Catgirl. I mean, Holly is right on the edge.
Yeah. I mean, she really is.
At different points in this volume, you feel like maybe they could have just turned her into Catgirl.
It's a little surprised they didn't ultimately. Yeah.
Right? Does she get some goggles of her own, some claws? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we even go through it at one point when Selena, toward the end, where Selena's missing, that Holly went out as Catwoman to just make just to be seen.
Right. To create a
that she's still
liability, right? Yeah, exactly. So the next few storylines, I know that there's some police corruption storylines. I know that
well, there's it's police corruption and then directly dealing with the mob, and it's all ultimately setting up this showdown with a woman from Selena's past that at one time she pulled a job with that ultimately got caught and went to prison where Selena got away. This Sylvie who comes back, and Black Mask.
Yeah, because Black Mask is sort of the one pulling a lot of the strings behind this first big storyline. I've only read a little bit of Black Mask. I don't know a ton of his stories, but I obviously have some knowledge just because of reading Batman books here and there. But this was a nice way. He is brutal in this. He's wild, and I don't know that I had seen him on this level before.
Yeah, he's in. Is it Under the Red Hood? Like when Red Hood comes back. There's another story I've read with him, and it's very this is very consistent with the other thing.
Yeah, I think when Red Hood shows up, Mask is trying to work his way into Gotham in that volume. Yeah.
So there's this is very consistent with the nature of how brutal he is.
Yeah.
But basically, Selena, they start trying to undo everything Selena's done to help the neighborhood. The Sylvie person basically gets back in Selena's good graces only to kind of betray her. And it sets up a situation where Selena's sister and Holly end up in trouble, and Selena has a showdown with these folks. And it doesn't go particularly well.
No.
It does not. Ultimately, Selena's sister and her husband, I guess, are the main two victims, but Holly as well get caught up in it. And I don't know that we need to. I don't know how much.
I don't need to spoil it, but I mean, I think it's a really intense storyline. I think it's got some great growth for Catwoman as far as what is she hoping to accomplish here, and what does having help and friends, how does that change her in some ways, right?
But ultimately, her trying to protect the neighborhood and take on this role as its protector puts her sister and her sister's husband in the crosshairs, puts Holly in the crosshairs. And there's some serious damage that comes out of that.
Yeah.
In terms of both to Holly and to her sister. And, Selena, for the most part, they survive. Selena and, but not without some serious scars.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
And I think it leads me to my favorite arc in this volume, which is, and I'm gonna no easy way down, which is the 3-issue kind of aftermath of that showdown with Black Mask and Sylvie.
Yeah, Catwoman 17, 18, and 19.
Yes.
Okay.
And Selena basically dealing with her grief poorly. Holly dealing with what she does to protect Selena at the end. And Slam trying to navigate his relationship with Selena. And yeah, I think it's, for me, that was the best part of the book. I'm curious what you think of those 3 issues.
I liked them, and I think that they're definitely the slower issues because they're focused on psychological elements, not physical elements. The Black Mask stuff was action packed, and you were getting a lot of plot twists and things. This is definitely more characters recovering.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 issues are almost completely internal monologues of Slam, Holly, and Selena. And there's almost no dialogue between them.
No.
It's all them thinking about themselves and each other and what happened and like how they're failing each other, and they're not, through most of it, they're not talking.
No.
And,
Selena's sleeping with Slam. He is happy about that, but he also knows that this is like not the creation of a relationship. It's an outlet for the trauma that she's working through.
Yeah.
And she's choosing him because it's in some ways safe for her.
Yeah.
And she's able to run off and be Catwoman at night and come back whenever she feels like it. And basically is using him.
She's using him, but he knows
he's happy. He wants to be used in some ways.
And he wants to be used. He's okay with it because because he knows that she doesn't feel about him the way he feels about her. So he's taking her any way he can get her.
Exactly.
And even though he knows it's not healthy in any way, shape, or form, and not going to lead to what he wants.
And then when he calls her on it, she's instantly like, yeah, I guess this has run its course now. And so she's out the window. Meanwhile, we've got Holly.
Yeah. And then Holly is basically being ignored by Selena, who's dealing with her own grief. And Holly's dealing with the trauma of, we won't say shoot, but she, in her effort to protect Selena, she shoots and kills somebody.
Yeah.
And so she, committed an act of violence to save her friends and doesn't know what to do with herself. And we see her, and I think some of the strongest pages are, we see her seeing other people drug addicts in the neighborhood and knowing that she could get it if she wanted it.
Yeah. The precariousness of her addiction.
Actually having some, but not struggling with whether or not to fall off the wagon.
Yeah.
And we see her dealing with her girlfriend who's trying to help her. And
who knows how fragile she is.
Yes.
Right. And Catwoman very much in a selfish place where she's just worrying about herself and choosing to pull away from all these other people in her life, right? Yeah. Is really using Slam and then ignoring Holly and Leslie, and as a result kind of damaging what she had kind of built up in a lot of ways. The end of this storyline, obviously you get a little more Bruce and Batman showing up a little bit to kind of force her to face the choices that she's making. And I think that he plays that moral compass for her a little bit.
Well, yeah,
in some of the things he's already gone through today, in his life. And
really we see that as after her confrontation with Slam, she goes to steal.
Yeah.
Sort of like Holly falling off the wagon, potentially falling off the wagon to...
It's Selena's addiction, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's Selena's addiction. And basically she breaks into a museum. She goes through there, and we see her as like so many choices: what to steal, what to steal. And Bruce is like, "What are you?" And Bruce, out of nowhere, she didn't know he was there. Is like, "What are you doing, Selena?"
Right.
And she's like, "You're a smart guy. What does it look like?" And he's like, "Making a mistake." And they go through, for a moment, they go through their usual stuff, but she starts to try to run, and then he realizes, A, she's drunk, and he's like, "Don't just fall back into bad habits. You're better than this." She's like, "You're always so sure of that, but you don't know what I've done. I let everyone get hurt and then just hurt them some more on my own. And you just don't know." And he's like, "I do know." And basically, he basically talks her down, and she goes back to, without them getting emotionally involved or or anything, he just talks her down, and then she goes and finally talks to Holly. And they finally start communicating with each other. And I just thought overall, I love the scene with her and Bruce at the end of it, and I loved all the lead up to it. And I just thought it was a really well done, the way they handled it overall. It's like these people that were, like Selena says, they all got hurt, and then they, in their pain, they hurt each other more as they were trying to work through it. But eventually they found their way back to where they needed to be. And I really enjoyed the heck out of that arc.
Yeah. And it sets Holly and specifically Selena on a literal and figurative new path where they're taken off from Gotham. They're on a road trip.
They go on a road trip.
Yeah. Congrats. Yes, I agree, Christina. Congrats to Robert G. He won Monty's big prize today. Definitely worthy of the storm emoji. Hopefully you get some great things. I know you will. Monty's giveaways are incredible.
Yeah.
And Kenneth Bird is in the chat. What's going on, Kenneth? Good to see you, my friend.
So,
so
go ahead.
No, go ahead. The road trip sequence is kind of interesting. They're obviously Selena is trying to separate herself from Gotham for a little while. She feels like she's failed in what she was doing in the East End. She wants to make sure Holly's got the right training to be able to do what she's risking her to do here.
Well, at least defend herself.
Yeah.
It's because Selena was putting Holly out there to be her eyes and ears on the ground and working with the neighborhood kids and putting her at risk, but she didn't have any of the skills to defend herself.
Right.
And so, we see, which I think is fun. We get Wildcat in here, which I always like a little while. I've never really read him, but every time he shows up, he's always fun.
He was the Catman too at one point, right?
Yes, yes. Ted Grant.
And I don't know Ted Grant very well.
I don't either, but he's always fun when he shows up.
But you get a lot of sequences of fight montage kind of training stuff between Ted and Holly, where he's kind of teaching her the basics of combat, and self-defense. And it gives Selena the chance to kind of go and do some things on the side that she's wanted to do. But there are these weird ninjas now following her. There's this whole creepy, they vanish into mist villain ninja guys that are kind of chasing her around in this. And this is an ongoing story, this through to the end, with the theft or the whatever this statue, this weird cat statue that she touches, and then basically angers bad guys on the side that will later be continually kind of trying
following
to
her and causing
get retribution for her sin of touching this thing. I don't know that I cared for that portion a ton, but I do like the way we're getting these I don't want to say second tier villains, but these lesser DC characters maybe. We get Captain Cold here in a little bit.
I love where she shows up and flashes town, and he's tries to get her to help him steal something that he can't steal on his own. And then he still jacks it up even after she does it. Like
she's got to play him while he's trying to play her. There's this like dual con job thing going on. They want to steal the Silver Age Flash's metal helmet, isn't it? Like in the museum,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And she needs information from Captain Cold, so she's using him to get the info, but he's asking her to help her steal something to make that end meet, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know that we need to dive into all these little plots.
I don't think so. Ultimately, the thing I liked about the road trip was they go on this long road trip and they're going to all these different places and they're looking for this person. And what we find out is it's Selena is basically Holly left home when she was very young. She had a younger brother that she hadn't seen in forever. And Selena basically tracks him down and allows them to find each other as adults. And so, I mean, that's ultimately what it's the end result of all this, of this long road trip. I will say there's several fun things in here. None of it's like really circumstantial. But I do love when Bruce comes to Slam to find out because Selena's gone and like, okay.
That's such an awkward conversation between Batman and Slam.
And then Slam tries to punch him and it's just like,
and Bruce lets him hit him one time. And then Bruce is like, you're not going to do that again.
Yeah, he lets him hit him one time.
Yeah.
And then Slam keeps getting up. And then I love, like, at one point, Bruce actually laughs at him. It's just like, which he never does.
We got somebody else in the chat. Jean Malot, what is going on, Jean? Good to see you, sir. I appreciate that. Richard says he would call them underdeveloped characters. And that's maybe a way, or just characters I'm not as familiar with. Yeah. And so I don't read a ton of Flash. So Captain Cold is not on my radar a ton. Yeah. Obviously Wildcat, Ted is not a hugely well-known character for me. So getting those underrepresented characters a chance is, I think, kind of fun for me. So when they're used well, and I think he does use them well.
So that takes us through like issue 24. Yeah. And then that's where the volume ends, right?
Then we're into JP's favorite portion of the omnibus, which is the latter half, or third, I should say, of the omnibus, is when Paul Galassi and Jimmy Palmiotti take over on art. And we get a villain that I kind of like looming in the background in this, I guess it's pronounced Zeiss or Zeiss?
Zeiss, I think, yeah.
But my issue with the character, and he is basically like a hyper super assassin with these like funky like goggles, glasses thing that help him
like basically slow down time, sort of, or something.
He is able to see every angle of what's happening at any given moment. He's kind of a taskmastery kind of bad guy who seems to be able to adapt to any foe. My issue with him is, as cool as he is and as cool as the fights with him are, they make him seem like an impossible villain to beat. And then towards the end, he's very easily beaten.
Well, so the first showdown is like they make this up and Bruce is trying to warn her, like, don't take this guy on your own. And like, you can't deal with him. And we also get like through this. So with her training with Wildcat is that like, after she touched the statue that the cult is about.
Yeah.
That she's actually like gotten more power, like she's faster and stronger than she's ever been. Like, like it's given her not like true superhuman powers, but like enhanced her slightly.
Yes.
So, but yeah, we have this whole build up with him and showdown where it appears, and even Bruce thinks she's potentially dead, but she gets saved at the last minute by this cult that's been following her. And then you're right. Like later, when he shows back up during like the War Games crossover arc, he was like beats his ass. It's like, wait, what?
And I just wish it had a little more substance to it. I think I would have appreciated a little more. For Robert Galvin, I think I can seal the deal on your question from earlier. Should you buy this? Would it be a great addition? Even this portion of the art in the story that you might not. We may not love Paul Galassi a ton. We may not love what Jimmy Palmiotti is doing. they definitely give you the spice.
Yeah, it definitely, and I do think this part of it is it goes from like this.
That might seal the
I
deal
won't
for you,
even
Robert.
say like the Darwyn Cooke kind of cartoony comic strip style,
Yeah.
which is basically the first 24. Even though Darwyn Cooke only does 4 issues, they stay to that aesthetic for the first like 24 issues.
Yeah.
And then from 25 through 37, it's sexy Catwoman.
It gives you the Ballant era vibe.
Yeah,
right?
it's Ballant era type Catwoman the rest of the way. I mean, and it's not just Selena. There's a scene where she wakes up in this, after the cult takes her, and it's like, it's just
the sheets cover her just right.
The sheets fall just right, and she kicks, and there just happens to be the guy's scarf is just in the right place, and it's.
So the issues I have with the artwork in this portion are not that they're awful. It's just that they're inconsistent, and there's some panels and pages that are really amazing. Sometimes the faces seem really flat or really emotionless.
Yeah.
I do like his penguin, and penguin is used kind of well in this sequence.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who wants to take over East End, but recognizes he can't get past Catwoman, and that there are now forces at play with this cult, with this cult and with Zeus, and he is kind of just caught in the middle of it all. And here to earlier to Gore's point, and I'll blow myself up now. Robert Mitchum is a fair description of what they do for Slam
during this part. Yes,
this is absolutely Robert Mitchum talking to Bruce Wayne there. It is spot on.
I mean, it's basically they're like, we're gonna make Slam Bradley Robert Mitchum.
Yeah, and I'm there for it. I have no problems with it. But it's a choice. So yeah, he basically stabs her and seemingly kills her, and we get some pretty bloody
pretty graphic stuff during that fight. Yeah,
I realize we haven't been showing you guys a ton of the artwork, but
we're showing the part that we didn't like.
Yeah. Because ultimately, I think everybody in our chat probably knows Darwyn Cooke's art, and the artists who are trying to replicate it get, near enough to it. So you kind of know what you're into there. The question is, like, what is this second third or the last third of this book? How does that artwork fare?
Yeah.
And that's where that inconsistency kind of comes in. Do we want to talk about, at the end here, is there more that you want to get into with this last last volume?
I thought, from a story standpoint, I thought it was weaker in the last half. I do think like the Zeit thing was pretty well set up, as he's basically gets hired by the mob because they're tired of Selena messing with him, and he does spend several issues like stalking her and figuring out before he acts.
Yeah.
And like setting her up. And I do think that's well played out. The cult stuff didn't work for me at all. And then when he actually gets abducted by them, it's like it makes no sense and it's weird, and then ultimately,
and then it's kind of like discarded too. It never really amounts to much.
Well, and maybe it does later in the volume after Brubaker is off.
I mean, maybe, yeah.
I have no idea. I haven't read anything past what we've read here in terms of, and then ultimately, I think my dissatisfaction with the last half is that the end of the Brubaker run and the end of this omnibus is part of a giant War Games Batman crossover event we're getting disconnected jumps in time, that it's just Catwoman's part of this crossover event, which I've come to loathe any kind of crossover event in any book. And you don't get a satisfying wrap up to the Brubaker run here.
And I think it's the curse of modern, I think, DC Marvel storytelling is if a book is good and popular enough, they're going to want you to tie it into the main events that occur. In the Bat universe, that means whatever yearly events that they're doing, oftentimes you're going to get roped in and your characters will connect to it. Kind of like Nightwing. The worst issues of the last Nightwing run were those Fear State, whatever tie-in issues. And I think it's kind of the same here. I will say I liked these tie-ins better. And my complaint wasn't that they were bad or useless. My complaint was that I wanted the rest of the story of those tie-ins.
They did.
I felt like I was just missing other stuff that I wanted. So it was not a, oh, I hate what I'm getting. It was that it was just not enough.
Well, one of the things I will say they do a little better now than they did here, which is a lot of times you get the tie-ins and the main arc may be of the tie-in event may be across multiple books, but usually like if you jump into like a book like Catwoman that's going to be a side book, is you just tell Selena's story through that, and those issues still connect.
Sure.
Even though they're occurring during the event, right? So they're at a time with her story, but they still connect with each other. Whereas this is clearly like part 4 and part 7 and part 13 of the bigger event. And it's like, okay, so I don't know what the hell happened between where we were and where we are.
Right. And I had never read that.
I haven't either.
The War Games event. So I had no understanding of what it was.
Yeah.
I loved what I got, and it does make me want to read more of it.
Yeah.
But we're only getting this sliver, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are Nightwing and Batman and Detective Comic issues that would, fill that in.
Fill all the gaps. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And then, like we said, we get the final battle with Zeiss.
During the War Game stuff.
Yeah, it's in the midst of the War Games thing. Oop, am I grabbing it right there? He shows back up again, and the two of them have their final showdown. And you can see that Catwoman has definitely learned from what their battle was the last time. What I think we failed to get, and the part that bothered me, I wanted to see what she had learned, right? What she had gained or mastered. Even if they, did it in a flashback in the middle of the fight, I wanted to better understand how she had evolved to so easily defeat someone who so easily defeated her earlier. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because that was my big frustration. But I enjoyed the fight sequences in that with her and Zeus. And it's really just 2 issues, I suppose, in the end, are fantastic. And they're really well drawn. And there's some of the better Galassi Palmiotti stuff is the motion and the panel to panel is really strong. I feel like I didn't feel like I was missing panels or confused by where people were. The framing was all really effective. So that stuff was strong. I just felt like from a writing standpoint, I wanted something that made me feel like, oh, I get it now. I get what's happened.
He tried to fit the rematch and her redemption into the middle of this bigger event.
Right.
And so it gets 5 pages instead of a book or 2 issues or and so that's where it suffers. And I think that's where, to me, it felt again like Brubaker didn't get a couple of issues to and maybe he wrote beyond this, and I don't know. I didn't actually look today.
I don't think so. I think this was the end of his run.
Yeah, and he didn't get a chance to kind of put a bow on his run.
Sure. Like Taylor did, because obviously Taylor writing Nightwing got a chance to write that final concluding arc the way he kind of wanted to and end on his own terms. So in that way, I think maybe Brubaker didn't have that, or maybe I don't feel like it was a complete misstep. It just was clearly not as strong as it could have been.
I guess technically he gets an issue because character driven is the last issue, 37. So he gets 1 issue after the War Games because they do have the party for Selena, at the end, and her and Slam have a conversation on the roof, and her and Leslie have a conversation on the roof. So
and Bruce donates some money in her name, to a charity to support her. as a way of kind of like,
because it's basically a birthday party. So he sent her a gift
and honoring her growth and her evolution. I like that Bruce is used so minimally, and when he shows up, it's to keep her on that right path to like navigate herself a little
and
bit.
He doesn't the only time he really comes off with a heavy hand during this volume with her and their interactions is with the lead up to the Zeiss fight.
Yeah. Where the first fight.
Because
he tells her, don't get involved with this guy. And gives the backstory of who this guy is and why he's dangerous and why he's worried. Bruce is worried about it.
Yeah, that's really the only time he is like typical heavy-handed Bruce when it comes to some of these things.
And he's also not like telling her what to do or forcing her to do anything. He's just giving advice and being a friend to her. You know, I think, you know, this is in that interim of love stories between the two characters. And I think he just wants to be supportive of someone he sees who's struggling to find the right path. And in that way, he's not trying to, I like that he's not mansplaining stuff to her or whatever. He's just looking out for her, giving her the best advice, and then hoping that she does the right thing, but not assuming that she will.
Yeah.
Knowing that she'll have slip ups and things along the way. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So an hour and 10 minutes in, do you want to give this an overall grade? I know we started this off with Robert and Matt both in the chat mentioning like, ooh, I'm curious about maybe buying this or looking into it. Obviously, a lot of 50% off sales. People may be able to find this for cheap in stock trades, organic priced books, whatever. What would be your recommendation for this title?
My recommendation on this is, and this is someone who has read, although it's been a long time, almost the entire 90s Catwoman series, and has read the new series, the complete thing, even with the terrible Teeny Howard stuff, and wanted to read this, which is why I bought this, because I had not read this volume, like any of it, let alone, because later we get into the, you know, I forget who writes it after this, but when you get toward like what the Adam Hughes covers and that kind of stuff, they're part of this volume. I would say, particularly through the first 24 with Selena's big score and the first 24 issues, this is as good as the writing is. Like, this is fantastic Catwoman storytelling, I think. You know, it keeps her on a level that, you know, this is her making missteps, but trying to find the right path. I think it's really well done. I think Slam and Holly and Leslie fit really well as kind of her main bounce offs.
Definitely.
And in terms of, you know, having characters to play off of and as a supporting cast, I think it loses its way a little bit, both writing and art wise, toward the end of the volume. I don't think the Zeiss stuff and the cult stuff work as well. I mean, he really gets away from
the noir,
the Brubaker noir after in the latter half of this, because we get into the, you know, the Zeiss he is a contract killer for the mob, but he's very, you know, kind of superpower. It's just not, it doesn't quite have the same tone, I guess.
Yeah. And I think it feels more like a traditional superhero book at that point and less like a noir crime heist kind of thing.
Yes. So I do think the tone varies there toward the end, but overall, yeah, I enjoyed the heck out of reading this. I don't know how we graded before. I don't know what we
I don't know that we did. I don't know that we did, except to just, you know, give our overall view.
So that's where I'm at. So parts of it I love a lot. I think it's as good a run on Catwoman as you're probably going to find in terms of particularly the first. I would go all the way through 24, and I think it starts. It's
it's about 2/3 of the book.
Yeah. Well, because you're talking about 24 issues of Catwoman, but that part also includes the Detective Comics backstories with Slam, the Secret File stories, and the Selena's big score. So you're talking like 30 issues of comics.
Yeah.
And then the last ones aren't bad. They're just not quite, for me, aren't up to the standard of what the early part of the book was.
Well said. Yeah, I agree. And I'm very happy to have read it as well. And I really enjoyed one of the criticisms I usually have for Marvel and DC is they don't seem to often let the characters ever change. And they don't let big stories happen to characters because they always have to reset back to zero again for the next run, right? Peter Parker's got to be Peter Parker when anybody picks up that issue. And what I liked about this was it was a distinct turning point. And Selena feels different at the end of this. And it makes her appearances in things like Hush and later on stories that I read but had not read this.
Well, Hush was technically occurred during this?
Yeah. It was the early 2000s right in there.
Yeah. Or right around what the beginning of this would have been, like in terms of this book was coming out similar time, or maybe just because she was in this costume, so it was this would have been around the same time that Hush was coming out, and stuff.
So for me, it made a consistency of character growth that I think you just don't often get in DC and Marvel, and I was happy to see that, and that made it very enjoyable for me, the reader, to get in on.
Well, yeah, because I would say that's a really good example because you will see that with, I would think the other two members of the Sirens have suffered that fate like a lot as they've moved Ivy away from true villainous. And then you'll read the next arc and a new author, and she'll be right back to being like the thing. Which hopefully, with now her having her own book, that will change. That it won't be that inconsistency back and forth. That they will have established where Ivy's going. And you see that sometimes with Harley too, because Harley will be like start to move down that path. She's moved a long ways down that path too, and then it's like, and then they make her like crazy psycho, like. Like, so you've seen that inconsistency with those, whereas I feel like this portrayal of Selena, even though she has been a little more of the thief in the current volume, but it's been very like specific why she's doing it, like the justification for why she's stealing and who she's stealing from has been very specific.
Yeah.
I do feel like this has been a change that has stuck.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that some of the current Poison Ivy has the same effect that this run had, where we're getting that shift over slightly to the anti-hero away from the anti-villain.
Yeah. As Richard says it well, like better than maybe I did, which is she still uses her thief skills. She just picks, she's not using them just to steal.
To steal for, not stealing for her own wealth.
Yeah, not for wealth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
great point, Richard. Thank you, and thank you, Robert and Bobby, for the kind words. I appreciate you guys, and huge thank you, Robert, for joining the X-Men. He's an X-Men team member now. I will add Robert to my my graphic for the next time. I appreciate you, Robert, big time. So as far as where this goes, JP and I are going to look through our collections of things and hopefully find another omnibus or collected storyline to be reading again soon, because I've got a fair amount, and I know he's got a fair amount that we would love to get through. Not all of them
overlap, but we'll have to,
Yeah, exactly.
There's a few he has that I'm interested in, and I think there's a few that neither of us have that we're both interested in, and so it's just a matter of like,
always more, right? Yeah.
Oh, there's always more. There's always more. So.
As a reminder, JP's channel link and his swag merch link are down below, so you can get yourself some cool JP.
He does a better job of advertising my stuff than I do. So. I mean,
I feel more comfortable pitching other people's stuff than my own.
For sure.
Yes, thank you, Richard. I appreciate you dropping that link, and hopefully we'll be back soon whenever we can choose another large format book to read, get it read, and then then get together.
Month to 7 months. We'll do one of these.
Many months in the planning for sure. So hopefully something soon, because obviously I've got a couple weeks off coming here in Christmas break time.
Sure, I'll need to put in an order maybe, and we'll track one down that we can.
And I know that we're both interested in Perez's Wonder Woman at some point. He's got it, and I want to buy it. I've found it for half price off is the best price I've seen. So it might be something that lands in a stocking.
This is what I've been saying I'm going to read, and Lasso's been giving me crap about. So
he's been giving me grief about that and the mod era Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I don't have the mod era yet. I need to track that down. So then maybe we can do a little Wonder Woman here as a one of the other as a follow-up. So.
Exactly. But that's what you can hopefully expect from us again here soon, folks. But I appreciate everybody for coming, and we will catch you guys again soon at some point for some more Omnibus reviews. All right. Bye, gang.